Hi to you guys. Welcome to my channel, Nhadi's Educ TV. And today we're going to discuss about methods of data processing. We are now moving to our second learning competency, presents and interprets data in tabular and graphical. Our learning objectives or the specific objectives, you are or you should be able to define data processing in a research study. Second, presents and interpret data in a tabular and graphical form. Third, determine effective way for quantitative data interpretation, and appreciate the importance of data analysis and interpretation of findings from a research study. So let's start. What is data processing? Data processing is dealing with editing, coding, classifying, tabulating, and presenting data through chart, diagram, or diagrams. It is a series of actions or steps performed on data to verify, organize, transform, integrate, and extract data in an appropriate output form for subsequent use. So in short, we are going to analyze or process the data you have collected using your instrument or the survey questionnaires. Methods of processing must be rigorously documented to ensure the utility and integrity of the data. According to Calmorin and Calmorin of 2007, data processing means translating information either manually or electronically into qualitative form for use in research analysis. Do not be confused about the qualitative form, because in chapter 4 we're going to interpret the data you collected from the numbers or from the tables and graphs that you presented. That's why it is qualitative form, but we are still in quantitative. Classification or categorization. Classification or categorization is the process of grouping the statistical data under various understandable homogeneous group for the purpose of convenient interpretation. A uniformity of attributes is a basic criterion for classification, and the grouping of data is made according to similarity. As presented in the figure, in forming groups, we have here the homogeneous groups and the heterogeneous groups. As you can see, homogeneous can be considered in your class, while the heterogeneous group can be selection of the students or selection of instructors or teachers. Classification becomes necessary when there is diversity in the data collected for meaningful presentation and analysis. However, it is meaningless with respect to homogeneous data. Why? Because homogeneous data have these similarities in characteristics and in some aspects. A good classification should have the characteristics of clarity, homogeneity, equality of scale, purposefulness, and accuracy. So we move on now to the second step in data processing, that is coding of data. Coding of data is more useful with research instrument of open-ended questions, according to Calmorin of 2007. Coding is efficient analysis, and through it several replies may be reduced to a small number of classes which contain the critical information required for analysis. Another, coding should be taken at the designing stage of the questionnaire. As we know, coding is more useful in qualitative research. On the other hand, some researchers now use coding to represent numbers and tables, which in turn they are now become quantitative data. Steps for coding of data. 1. Study the responses. In the case of pressing coded question, coding begins at the preparation of interview schedules. An interview schedule is basically a list of containing a set of structured questions that have been prepared to serve as a guide for interviewers or researchers or even the investigators in collecting information or data about a specific topic or issue. Step 2. In this step, coding frame must be developed by listing the possible answers to each question and assigning code numbers or symbols to each of them, which are the indicators used for coding. On the third step, after preparing the sample frame, the gradual process of fitting the answers to the question must begin. While on step 4, transcription must be undertaken. Example, transferring the information from the schedules to a separate sheet called transcription sheet. So these steps are very essential for quali and quantitative research. We move now to the third step in data processing, that is tabulation of data. Tabulation is the process of summarizing raw data and displaying it in a compact form for further analysis. Therefore, preparing tables is a very important step. These raw data are your responses from the survey questionnaire or even the result of your experiments. Tabulation may be manual, mechanical, or electronic. The choice is made largely on the basis of the size and type of study, alternative cost, time, pressures, and the availability of computers and computer programs. What is important here is that even if you use manually tabulating your raw data manually, or you can use mechanical or electronic, like for example some softwares, will depend on the size and type of the study. Tabulation of data is classified into two parts, that is a simple tabulation and a complex tabulation. What is simple tabulation? It gives information regarding one or more independent questions, while the complex tabulation gives information regarding two mutually dependent questions. Based from the figure analysis, that is the tabulation, it presents a complex tabulation because there are answers to two dependent questions. Last steps in data processing is the data diagrams. Here are some features of data diagrams. Data diagrams or diagrams are charts and graphs used to present data. Here are the features of these diagrams. First, these facilitate getting the attention of the reader, which is the most important thing that we should undertake, is for the reader to understand your research. Second, these help presenting data more effectively. Using tables and graphs, they can easily visualize what are the results. And lastly, creative presentation of data is possible. So let's move to the next topic, which is the scope and purpose of data analysis. So, what is data analysis? Data analysis is the process of developing answers to questions through the examination and interpretation of data. We say developing answers to the question, it refers to your SOP. Data analysis will answer your statement of the problems or your objectives. This part presents the gathered data and the researcher's analysis and interpretation of the results and of the distributed instruments. We should remember that the data should be presented in a clear and concise form, uh, most of which use graphs and tables. The first figure illustrates the data analysis. So it composes the bar graph, the pie, the line graph, while the second one is an example of a table where your data are, are presented. And the third one is an example of a bar graph from parents' educational qualifications. Here are the things that researchers must do. First, the researcher must interpret. When we say the researcher must interpret, it means that you need to summarize your data and then uh, provide findings on the data you collected. Second, the researcher must give implication. What does this data imply? Is there a significance? Is there a relation? What does it gives to your data? What does it implies to your study? And the last is the researcher must cite related studies to support the claim. We say support to the claim means that you need to look for other studies or related literature that has the same concept or uh, interpretation or result from your study. So you need to cite them in order to give value to your research. It means that your study your study is supported by the recent or former studies. So what are the essentials for understanding results from surveys? We have administrative sources and pilot studies. So it gives us for providing data gaps, for designing and redesigning survey, for planning new statistical activities, and for formulating quality outcomes. So these four are the essentials for understanding results from survey. So according to SAMO of 2010, the data presentation section presents and summarizes background information of the respondents and the data collected through literature, survey questionnaires, interviews, and observations. The purpose of interpreting data is to reduce it to an intelligible and interpretable form so that the relations of research problems can be studied and tested and conclusions drawn. Data can be for descriptive or analytic studies. Data analysis and interpretation is the process of assigning meaning to the collected information and determining the conclusions, significance, and implications of the findings according to Tania 2014. So the main purpose of data analysis is for us to present, to determine, and to give implications while we recommend at the end. Quantitative analysis approaches are meaningful only when there is a need for data summary across many repetitions of a participatory process. For example, focus group discussions leading to seasonal calendars, the Venn diagram. Also, quantitative research generates large bulk of data that requires organization and summarizing through a statistical software package. We should remember that in quantitative research, we are dealing with large numbers of data from our large samples. According to Wilder Research of 2009, spreadsheet software or the other statistical tool can be helpful in organizing the data. Readily available computer programs such as Excel and Access may be useful. Excel tends to be accessible for most people who have access to a computer with Microsoft products. As you can see in this example, we have here the Minitab 19 and the Microsoft Excel, which is the very common statistical software that the researcher used, the Microsoft Excel. And for easy computation of the result for statistical treatment on your variables or your data, we use Minitab. Nowadays, we use Microsoft products using our cell phones. So that is the good thing that we are now in the information age. Now we move on to the key components of data analysis plan. There are 5 key components that we need to understand. First, purpose of evaluation. What are you going to evaluate? Second, questions. What are the most important questions that needs answer? Third, what you hope to learn from the questions. It means what should be the expected answers. Fourth, analysis technique. What analysis technique should you use to arrive at the correct interpretation or answer or outcome? And the fifth, how data will be presented. So are you going to use diagrams, which includes charts and graphs, or in any other way? We now move to data interpretation. According to Reyes of 2004, research interpretation is defined as an adequate exposition of the true meaning of the material presented in terms of the purpose of the study. Once the data are collected and tabulated, the next step is to analyze it. The researcher must plan how to analyze data. The best time to develop the analysis plan is when the researcher will be able to identify key evaluation questions and the method of gathering the needed information. Important to match the analysis strategy to the research problem. Means that we should gather the data based on our SOP. So for question number 1, or we should analyze or align our analysis strategy to our SOP or the statement of the problem. Reyes also added that the interpretation is inextricably woven with the analysis, so much so that it is a special aspect of analysis rather than a distinct operation. So the findings of the study should be written objectively and in a concise and precise format. In quantitative research, it is common to use graphs, tables, and charts and other non-textual elements to help the reader understand the data. When we say non-textual, it should consist with numbers and figures. Make sure that non-textual elements do not stand in isolation from the text but are being used to supplement the overall description of the results and to help clarify key points being made. The results and discussions should contain the following. Results and discussions should be systematic, logical, and comprehensive. The discussion should blend together the findings in relation to those identified in the literature review and placed within the context of theoretical framework underpinning the study. And the discussion should be presented in a present tense, unlike in the research methodology, which is presented in the past tense. Now, here are the steps for data interpretation. First, revisit the main and sub-problems. We're going to look back again for our SOP. Second, describe the data. What you have collected, you need to describe it. Third, plan for an appropriate way to present the data collected through tabular form, graphical, or any other way. So, in this step, we need to plan an appropriate way presenting our collected data. Number 4, plug in additional information. When we say plug in additional information, we need to add some qualitative data or information to support the presented data that we have already described. Number 5 is have a closure or concluding statement in every data information. So what you have described in a tabular or graphical and an additional information, you should make a concluding statement on that data. Basic analysis of quantitative information. We have 4 basic analysis. Number 1, make copies of your data and store the master copy away. Use the copy for making edits, cutting, and pasting. So make sure that you have a backup copy. Tabulate the information. Add up the number of ratings, rankings, the yes and no's for each questions. Number 3, for ratings and rankings, consider computing the mean or average for each question. For example, for question number 1, let's say the profile, or let's say the weighted mean of their scores. The average ranking was 2.4. This is more meaningful than indicating how many respondents rank 1, rank 2, or rank 3. Number 4, consider conveying the range of answers. Example, 20 people rank 1, 30 rank 2, and 20 people rank 3. There are 4 main stages in the analysis and interpretation of qualitative data information. These are discussed in more detail in several textbooks, including Patron of 1986, 1990, Miles and Huberman and Silverman in 1994. Here, the researcher shall concentrate more on practical tasks rather than on theoretical issues. For our last topic, I'm going to give you an example for analysis and interpretation of data. Published in International Forum, Volume 16, number 20, October of 2013, pages 51 to 56. The link are already presented there. The title, Reaching the Unreached, a Challenge for Filipino Educators, by Helen Bihag Boholano and Mary Lucy Go Poco. Here is their data analysis. Data analysis procedure involve the use of Minitab to interpret and analyze the data. Statistical formulas used indicated or included frequency, percentage, mean, and standard deviation. The interview results were transcribed and used as basis for discussion of the results. It allows generalization of results from a sample to an entire population of interest and the measurement of the incidence of various views and opinions in a given sample. As you can see, this data analysis or this research is an example of quantitative research using a qualitative information, that is coding. So let us analyze. The encircled statement is focused on the statistical tools that used in the data analysis. They use the Minitab to interpret and analyze the next figure in closed statement is more on the result of the transcribed data and used for discussions. And the last is it allows generalization result from sample to entire population. It means the researcher here formulate conclusions based on the result of their gathered data with the help of the statistical formulas or the statistical tools to interpret the data. Let's now take sample tables. The first table is table 1, educational attainment of the unreached children. As you can see, in the first column there are grade level, and the male and female are separated, as well as the total, which also includes the percentage of the respondents. For kinder, we have 28, grade 1, 10, and so on. For the total, we have male 163 and female 129, for the grand total of 292. So this is an example of presentation using table. The second one is an example of a table using responses of the respondents with the answer yes, I don't know, and no. In table 3, which is the personal information data, here the children were the respondents, so they were asked to answer a yes or a no in the following questions. There are 13 questions, and there is an asterisk below this table, which states that excluding the 17 children not enrolled in school. So that is another, what we call another information aside from the data that were described. With table 3, table 4 refers to the numeracy skills data. Here the students are tested using their perception, so they are the one who give or provide answers to the certain questions. What you see now is figure 1, that is parents educational qualifications presented in a bar graph. You can visualize there the mother and the parents, the mother and the father, or the parents of the children whose educational qualification or backgrounds are presented. we start with the elementary grade, high school graduate, college level, college graduate, and vocational. Here, the researcher discuss the result of their data collected. So they stated the total number of the respondents with percentage. As you can see, every educational qualifications of the parents are being discussed in the transcript of these results and discussion. Moreover, there is a concluding statement before the end of this discussion. There were more children in higher grades in elementary level. However, children are more skilled at the age and may leave school to work. And so, it is possible for few will move on to high school. So, that is their findings. On this slide, the researcher now give implication. The parents survey indicated that 182 parents had an elementary level education. It is not surprising then that the parents do not have the motivation to send their children to school. So with that statement, it implies that those parents lacking of motivation seldom send their children to school. The next one, evidence suggests that the experience of those with poor literacy and numeracy skills in particularly marked, according to Biner and Parson of 1997 and Moser of 1991. So this citation now is a support for the claim of the researcher's implication. So that validates or give support or value to their implication. And for the concluding part of the researcher now, as figure 1 indicates, very few parents attain college level education, and it appears that more parents move into vocational training after elementary than the number going on to high school. So that is their concluding statement. Now, in this slide, let us chop all the statements to determine the findings, implications, related literature or cited studies, and the researcher's conclusion. Okay. Other demographic information unearthed in this study indicates that there were families containing 2 or more school-age children who were not in school because of poverty issue. This is the researcher's findings. Furthermore, some children live with both parents, while others whose parents were separated tended to live with the mother. So this is their implication. And the cited study from Amato and Kit of 1991 stated that school dropout and delinquency are more a host of other possible problematic outcomes that increase a likelihood following parental separation. So this is another issue to watch. Additionally, parental separation often result in parents having limited man hours, ability, and drive to help children with school work. Thus, so this is now the concluding part of the researcher. Thus, any initiative to provide educational opportunities would have to consider possible after-school programs for those students who need additional help that parents may be unable to provide. Now, this slide for further understanding of the terms used in this lesson, definition of terms are provided. In this slide, coding frame, homogeneous group, and interview schedules are defined. Next slide define the terms sample frame, tables and graphs, and transcription sheet. For your assessment task, here is your instruction. To determine your concise and learning about this lesson, your task is uploaded to the link provided below. Use it to navigate your task and answer the needed information and questions. Just be reminded that the title under this link is PR2 Quanti CHP or Chapter 5 Lesson 2 Methods of Data Processing Task 2. Just follow this link. On this slide is the references of this lesson. That ends our lesson for today. I hope you find time to like, share, subscribe, click that notification bell, and thank you.